recording. The recording got started. So we're gonna complete the problems that we have had in this class note from last class. I asked you to attempt these problems, not essentially be able to do this. If you have already solved them, very good. My congratulations towards you. If you couldn't, or if you haven't, if you forgot, whatever that is, I'm gonna try and help you. But you kids, I think many of you did attempt and should be able to solve the problem. How far did we go here? I think 4C.
Yes, sir.
4C, right? So yeah, we're gonna continue the question from the 4C, and we're gonna slowly move forward. I think this is not the optimum PDF for me to operate with, because I'm not gonna be able to select full images from here. So I might as well choose to operate with the big one. It's a big one, which is a really detailed and high definition. Can everybody hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. So I am gonna turn the chat window right over here, and the participants list right over here. So 35 people joining today. So we're about 15 people shy, somewhere around. I have to show up in due time. So we're gonna continue from the solution. D number taki para geche? The velocity reached halfway to the maximum height. I'm going to talk about this anyway. Have a look. Try to understand the meaning of this sentence. The velocity reached halfway to the maximum height. What does it mean? Does this sentence mean that you are asked to find out the velocity as the object was going up or as the object was going down?
Up.
Halfway to the maximum height would mean we are asked to find out the upward velocity. So since the question is already asking us velocity, it is important that you should mention your answer direction as well. So you might have a value and you should also give a direction, which means we are trying to find out the halfway height velocity for this object. We did calculate what is the maximum height. What is the answer for 4B from our last class? Maximum height was calculated to be how much? This is number C.
20 meter.
It was 20 meter?
Yes, sir.
So that would mean that the halfway velocity is gonna half height would be 10 meter. So if I just consider that part of the information, let me select this up. No. Why is this also piece by piece? This is not supposed to.
স্যার ডাউনলোড করেছি
স্যার আগের ক্লাসে যেখান থেকে স্টপ করেছি সেখান থেকে স্টার্ট করব।
আমি ওখান থেকে করাচ্ছি, এক্স্যাক্টলি ওখান থেকে শুরু করছি। So we are starting to solve from 4D. So we did finish up to 4C, so we are starting from 4D. So it is about the halfway height. So if I just go ahead and try to write up this information, So for this part, we have the initial velocity available, which is known to us, and then we have the halfway height, which should be 20 by 2, so which is 10 meter, which works. And then we are asked to find out the final velocity. By default, we know the value of G, or we can also write it as A, which would be equals to minus 10 meter per second square. The significance of minus is that in this case, the initial velocity and the accelerations are occurring in opposite direction. It's a deceleration case because they are vector quantities, there should be a minus sign. So involving these 4 variables, we can see that the T is the missing variable, which means we go for the fourth formula, which happens to be V square equals to, which I should connect my right pad, which I forgot to connect. Give me a moment, kids. এটা কত আসে ক্যালকুলেট করার পর ভেরিয়েবলটা কত আসে?
স্যার কোশ্চেনটা একটু দেখাবেন।
All right. So এখান থেকে আমাদের ইকুয়েশন যদি করি, So among all of these variables, t is the missing variable. So if we go for that fourth equation, which is b square equals to u square plus twice as, which is a generic formula. So I can write up this value, start writing this value. So I'm trying to find out the final velocity. So I'm going to keep this as variable. What was the initial velocity, throwing velocity of the object?
20 meter per second.
This was 20 meters per second. Nuhan, hi. We can see you. Although we don't want to.
H এর উপর কি লিখেছিলেন?
H equals to 20 by 2 because we asked to find
এটার উপরে
u equals to tick চিহ্ন, মানে we know the value of u was given to us.
আচ্ছা,
so 2 into minus 10 into minus 10, no minus 10 no, sorry, এটা হচ্ছে শুধু 10 because the height is happening in the positive direction, upward displacement. So ultimately এখান থেকে আমাদের v এর ভ্যালু আসবে। So আমি যদি ম্যাথমেটিক্যালি আমাদের v এর কিন্তু প্লাস মাইনাস ভ্যালু আসার কথা, because you're going to get a positive number out of this calculation, which is going to be 200. So v is going to be plus minus root over 200. This should be about 14.14, or about, we can write 14.14. Now the question is, we do have a plus minus over here. What would this plus minus sign represent? I mean, what does this mean? Does this mean that negative is unacceptable, or negative cannot happen, or negative is not acceptable for this question? What does it mean?
Both can be like,
Sir,
both
both are
are
possible.
applicable. Both are applicable.
So should we our answer, we should give both the, should in our answer, should we give plus minus?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
The direction.
Yeah.
No,
Only
acceleration is
plus.
negative, so there should be positive, right?
Plus minus here indicates the direction, right?
Yeah, plus minus
Yeah.
is the direction. So this is the part that I need to
It should
understand.
be
Let's say
positive.
from the bottom, we are throwing the object at an initial velocity of 20 meters per second. That was the case. Okay. So it's going to rise up and slow down, slow down, slow down. And eventually, let's say it's going to reach up to a maximum height of, maximum height 20 meters. So let's say this level is going to be 20 meters, but it was 0 meter, which is the starting point of the motion. Now, the question tells you, if I turn over the PDF one more time, the question is asking you that what is the the velocity reached halfway to the maximum height. So halfway to the maximum height means we are asked to find out the upward velocity, which means we are trying to calculate what is the exact velocity of the object when it was exactly at 10 meter height. So let's say this level is at 10 meter, and এই পজিশনের exact velocity কত সেটা আমাদেরকে বাই করতে বলছে। Technically speaking, both the plus and minus values are acceptable for the actual realistic scenario. Not for this question, but they are possible. Why? Because try to understand, this object is going to rise all the way up and eventually fall all the way down as well, right? So as the object is going to rise up and eventually fall down, somewhat after it reaches the maximum point, it's going to start falling down. So at one point, it's going to come to that exact same point in the downward motion part, falling part, and it is going to have an equal amount of negative velocity at the same location. That's very much possible. Which means, logically speaking, the object can have both positive and negative velocity. It is possible for the object to achieve, but for the question that we are being asked at this in this question, we are not going to cover both of them. So we're only going to write the answer to this question is going to be 14.1 meter per second square second. Oh my bad, it's a square meter per second. 40.1 meter per second, comma upwards. It's important that you give the upwards. Kids, always understand, if you are ever asked to find out the a vector quantity, you should always prefer to give direction. It's a default requirement. So be careful about this question. এই পার্টটা বুঝা গেছে সবার?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any question?
Yes, sir. Is it 14.14?
40.14, yes. So I wrote it into 3SF. That's why I wrote 14.1.
Okay, sir.
Sure. So this was that. Let's go for number 5. Have a look. An electric train moves from rest with uniform acceleration of 1.5 meter per second square for the first 10 seconds and continues accelerating at 0.5 meter per second square for a further 20 seconds. It continues at a constant speed for 90 seconds and finally takes 30 seconds to decelerate uniformly to rest. By showing necessary calculation, draw a speed time graph for the journey. So draw a speed time graph. Whenever they are asking you to draw, it means that you are not essentially asked to plot, neither you are asked to sketch. I mean, 18 word difference তোমাদেরকে বলি, difference গুলো বুঝো। Whenever you are asked, whenever in your question it says sketch. Sketch means what is really important is the shape of the graph and the axis labeling. These are the two things that are going to be marked upon: the shape of the graph and the axis labeling. Shape এর মধ্যে একটা ডিফল্ট জিনিস ইনভলভ থাকে যেটা স্টুডেন্ট অনেক সময় whenever sometimes student kids only understand by shape that only the shape. No, shape also incorporate one inherent information, that is the starting point. Shape এর ভেতরে এই ইনফরমেশনটা অবশ্যই important একটা information, that from exact which point did you start your graph. Did you start from the origin? Are you supposed to start from the origin, or supposed to start from y-axis intercept or x-axis intercept, so on and so forth. That's really important. So that's one thing. That's what the meaning of the word sketch. If you're ever asked a question, plot, for plot questions, you will always be given a graph paper in your question. If a graph paper is not available, in some of our worksheet questions, they are not available because questions which are prior to, I think, 2011, these questions used to be like this. Let's say in the section B question. Do you know what section A and section B is? No.
Yes, sir. MCQ and the
No.
written.
Paper 1 and paper 2 হচ্ছে MCQ and written question. দেখাচ্ছি এই কোশ্চেনটা দেখো। For example, this is one of the simple sample questions. আচ্ছা, এখানে একটা কোশ্চেন ছিল already. This is one of the sample CIE question. This is the question paper from October number 2018. I randomly picked it up to practice some problem from this question. So have a look. Section A, answer all questions. Write all your answers in the spaces provided in the question paper. Section B, answer any two questions. Write your answers in the spaces provided in the question paper. Electronic calculators may be used. You may lose marks if you do not show your working or if you do not use appropriate units. At the end of the examination, fasten all of your work securely together, which is basically not essential. Then because you're going to be given a paper, you're going to be answering the paper, so basically you don't have to attach anything. They always give this information because in some of the cases, in some of the other subjects, economics and maybe other parts, kids might have to take extra pages, and for those paper they will require to fasten this paper. But for physics, this is not applicable, so you can disregard that information. The number of marks is given in brackets at the end of each question or part question. So এগুলো হচ্ছে বেসিক ইনফরমেশন। এখানে খুব দরকারি জিনিসপত্র আছে, খেয়াল করো। Write your center number, candidate number and name on all the work you hand in. So এগুলো সব ফিল আপ করতে হবে প্রপারলি। এখানে কিন্তু কোথাও কোনো নাই, ইনভিজিলেটরস কোনো সিগনেচার নাই, দেখছো? So ইনভিজিলেটর এসে তোমাকে রিমাইন্ড করবে না যে এখানে তুমি লিখো নাই কেন। You are supposed to fill this up at your own responsibility, and you will be allowed to fill this up before the exam happens. So you'll be given the question paper. The examiners will ask you to do not turn over the paper, but you can fill up the cover page and just keep your paper on the table. You can fill this up and keep it on the table. Do not turn over the paper. Do not look inside. Do not try to peek inside, because the examiners are gonna invigilate you on that. And if you just try to show disregard to disciplinary rules, you would be starting to get penalized from the very beginning, which you don't want to happen, especially not in the CIE examination hall. So you're going to fill this up, wait for the bell to happen, and then at one point the bell will happen, or the teachers will say start writing now. Then you can turn over the paper and start answering your questions. So you would not have to spend any time of your available 1 hour 45 minutes to fill this up. You can fill this up beforehand. It is important that you do not do any crossing mistake over here. So preferably write your candidate name in block letter. Have a look. Candidate name, they have given the whole thing in block letters. So write your entire name in block letters. Then you fill this up carefully, center number and candidate number. So you know all of this information when you sit for your exam. So you should fill this up carefully. If you somehow make a mistake that you have to cross out and write something, ask for invigilators' help immediately. They are gonna come around and they're gonna give you the necessary instruction. Either they might replace your paper with a new paper, brand new paper, or they might give you some actual means so that you can actually do this. It's very important that you do not do any mistake over here. But if you do, don't panic. People can do mistakes, and there are always precaution taken. That statistically speaking, some people will always do mistakes. So you should immediately inform your invigilators, sir, I mistakenly did some error over here. So what do I do? So they're gonna instruct you. Typically, what they do, if they have additional paper, then they're gonna give you that additional blank paper, and they're gonna take out the old one. If they don't have additional blank paper, then you would have to write this up, and the invigilator might put their signature over here with some other credentials to represent that this is actually correct thing. So they went through the correction and they approve of this correction. So something like this can happen. So this is the first cover page, and then comes section A. Section A হচ্ছে এখান থেকে শুরু হচ্ছে. Section A the total marks হচ্ছে 45. You'll have to answer all the questions that is available in section A. Sometimes there are 7 questions, sometimes there are 8 questions. It depends upon how big the questions are. All the chapters might not have questions from here, but some chapters might have. So over here, up to question number 7, they are finishing this question, section number A. You are expected, to answer all the questions from this section in the paper 2. Then comes section B. In section B, you're gonna have 3 questions, and you should choose between these 3 questions. There is a sequence that I always prescribe to the kids to go for the exam, which I'm gonna tell you in a bit, but have a look. Section B is starting, answer 2 questions from this section, answer in the spaces provided. So they have a look. This is question number 8. It starts from here, goes all the way, and eventually in 3 pages it finishes. Here are some blank spaces. You're not expected to write in these blank spaces. Do not write onto these stops. And in some cases, you might have a margin line where it says for examiner's use, which is not present in this paper, but in some other paper you might have. If you ever have that kind of a margin where it says for examiner's use, do not ever write on that margin, or definitely not on the right side of the margin. Avoid that margin at all costs. So that's very important. Over here we don't have it, so you are expected to write within this space.
We are allowed to write on the blank side, right?
Here?
Yes, sir.
No, you are not. The spaces are given in a certain way that you should be able to write up a correct answer and then cut it off altogether and write up the correct answer once again. These spaces are measured to be capable to hold the correct answer twice. So you are allowed to by default make a mistake, but you don't ever have to fill this up space. You have to write exclusively correct, precise answer to score the mark. That's all. So what is really recommended is that read the question before, and do not rush into writing the answer. Don't ever. Read the question, take the information, think, read the question again, and keep thinking and start making the answer in your head. That how am I going to write this answer? What are going to be my words, and how precisely do those words mean? Is there any possibility to misinterpret those words in a different way? I mean, are my sentences, are my phrases equivocal or by meaning type? So that way you should choose your word choosing in your head. Once you are satisfied with the sentence that you are done, then you start writing. That's the recommended way. Don't rush into writing, and don't ever feel like to fill up this space. You don't ever have to. And definitely do not ever double line this spacing. Sometimes what the kids do, just because they feel they feel compelled to fill up this space, that they write 2 individual sentences in this space, and then 2 more here, and then 2 more here. There are 6 lines over here, which is extremely disgusting and highly non-recommended. For physics papers, definitely. You are given this much space so that you can write up your answer in a convenient way, so that the examiners can conveniently check your paper. I mean, think about it. If you write two different lines over here, maybe you can achieve this by the size of your font, by the font size of your handwriting. But is it going to be convenient for the examiner to check your copy? That person is going to read 6 different lines to give you a mark of 2, which is going to be troublesome and tiresome for them, and you're going to make a hell of a bad impression on the examiner. So don't do that. Think what you want to write and then write. We're going to practice about these stuff further down the line a lot more, so you will all get to know this, but it's important that you know what you're supposed to do so that you can as slowly and surely achieve towards that goal. So here comes question number 8, which finishes up over here, and then comes question number 9. So up till this mark, we have a total of 15 marks. Then question number 9, it goes all the way up over here and finishes over here, and then question number 10, it goes all the way up over here, and then there's some blank pages over here. Why do they have blank pages? I can yeah, I can tell you. The reason they have blank pages is because the paper, they are usually made with a large A3 size paper. Do you guys know what an A3 size paper is?
Yes, sir.
An A4 size paper is the basic paper that we print, regular size paper. A3 is just the double of that, just the exact double of that. And the way the questions are usually printed is that they print out the entire page question in A3 paper, and they put a central stapler through all the pages. So because one A3 paper has a total of 4 pages, think about it. Double the size of a A4 paper is A3 paper. So one A3 paper has how many pages? If you fold it in the middle, how many pages do you get? Hello?
2.
Not
2.
4.
you get 4. Pages in this case would mean sides. মানে বাংলা যেটা আমরা পৃষ্ঠা এবং পাতা বলি. For example, if you fold up an A3 page, you're gonna get 2 leaves. Each leaf gives you 2 pages, the 2 surfaces. So folding up an A3 paper, you get 4 pages. So this is why all the question papers typically always come in full multiple numbers of 5. For example, this question paper could not be accommodated up to within 16 pages. They needed 1 more page over here. So just to make it a whole, they moved they gave 3 blank pages and usually finish the paper at page number 20. So what it means, each of these question papers are going to be made up with 5 A3 papers, and they're going to print it up all up, and they're going to staple it up in proper direction, and that's how it is going to be done. So that's so.
Sir,
Yes,
can we do rough on those pages?
you can. You can do rough on these pages, no big deal. You can do rough on the margins as well. For example, if you want for a certain mathematical, if you want to do some rough right over here, you can. But typically speaking, if you wouldn't usually be requiring to do some roughs, provided your preparation is good enough. I mean, if you read the question, you would know what formula to be used and what you should be doing. The answer to your question is yes, but in most cases you would not require it. You can believe my word. Yeah, Shaptoshi, go ahead.
Sir, so this means that anything we do in the blank pages, it would not be counted or marked, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So moving on further. So how do we usually
ব্ল্যাঙ্ক পেজে লিখলে মার্ক দিবে না?
না
আচ্ছা।
মার্ক দিবে না বলতে it's not essentially a hard no. I mean, if you write something in the blank space, it means if you write something other than the ... space or the designated space for a certain answer, whether the examiner should read that additional part that you wrote somewhere else or in the blank spaces and give you the mark is at the discretion of the examiner. If the examiner wants to give you mark, they might go through that and give you marks. If they choose not to read this part, they cannot be accused for it. Which means that you are leaving things at chance. Should you? No. That's the important bit, that think before you write. Don't just rush into writing the answer and fill up the space with a whole lot of wrong things and then cut it all up and then run out of space and then lose your calm and ultimately altogether mess up your performance. Don't do that. Before you write an answer, think about it. That what am I going to write? How am I going to put those words? What comes after what? What is the cause and effect sequence? So which incident should I mention first? Which incident should I mention second? So on and so forth.
স্যার
Yes, Sami.
স্যার আমরা কি পেন্সিল ইউজ করতে পারি না যদি ঠিক অ্যানসারটা না জানি?
Beautiful question. Let's have a look at the instruction. Read. What do you see?
পেন দিয়ে লিখতে।
Then what do you see?
Oh, pencil.
Exactly. So they have designated already that which of the parts of the answer paper should be written in pens and which of the answer paper segments should be preferably answered in pencils. So you get my point. So how do I recommend the kids should approach this paper to paper? This exam is pretty far away, but I have a reason to tell you this part, stuffs, because you should know. Because many of you are already in the schools and you're going to be appearing this kind of test in your actual school test as well. I usually take all of my class tests in a format where you have to answer all the questions without any choice. I don't give choices because what I personally feel like that giving the choice actually allows the kids to skip the part that they believe they are weak at. And you kids are doing classes with me exclusively because we want to know, both of us, we means not I, both of us want to know exactly what you are weak at. And we want to address that issue and we want to solve that issue and we want you to become better at that issue. So if I give you an option or a choice in terms of answers, that entire purpose is basically missed out. So I don't do that. So the point that I was trying to get at is that how do I propose that the students should try to answer this question? This is what I recommend, but different teachers can have different procedure. Is that once you are asked to turn over the question, immediately turn over to section B. Don't even go or turn over to section A. You don't have to. Turn over to section B and take some time, 10-15 minutes if you need, to read through all of these questions. Just read through all the questions. You don't have to answer it. Just read through all the questions, all the way up to here, then all the way up to here, then all the way up to here. Read the entire section B questions, only questions. Don't try to think about the answer. Just read the question. And you're doing this and once you're done reading the question and you have let's say 10-15 minutes have passed and you haven't put a single mark on your paper, you are absolutely covered. Believe me on this one, I'll tell you why. And then you jump back to section A, because in this section A you don't have anything to answer. Then you start answering section A from the very beginning and finish answering section A within some time as you are comfortable. The benefit of reading the entire section B first is that you would not have to spend time, or you don't have to risk some guess at the end of section B, say at the end of answering section A, to choose which two questions from section B are you're going to answer. If you read the section B questions first, then answer section A, by the time you're writing your answer of section A, your brain would have automatically decided, your brain would tell you that which are the two questions you want to answer. And you know by your heart that you can answer them better. Not essentially answer them better. There are two aspects in play here. One of the things is that some questions may be difficult to answer, but you know by heart that those questions are really less time consuming. So monokoro by some God forbid, by some mechanism, or let's say you took some really additional time to finish up section A, you just messed up something, or you were quite slow in section A for whatever reason, then you would know that which of these question answers would take you less time. So for example, if you go for an electromagnetism question, the entire electromagnetism topic is filled up with description. There is almost zero math. Whereas if you go for electricity section, DC circuit, it is nearly entirely filled up with math. So you can choose which segment is easier for you to understand based upon how much time do you have and based upon which topic that you are comfortable with. Do I make sense?
Yes, sir.
Since you would have the information in your head from beforehand, you can immediately choose which questions you're going to answer. You can directly jump into answering those questions and you don't have to spend any further time. Why is it important to read the questions at the beginning of the exam? Because at the beginning of the exam, you are calm and rested and you're alert. You can make an educated extraction of, or you can make a actual extraction of information by reading those three questions. All right, don't just look at a question and assume this question is 3 pages, this is big. Don't just look at a question and think this question is 2 pages, this is small. No. What a 3-page question might have, it might fill up with a huge whole lot of graphs. It might be filled up with a whole lot of mathematical questions, which might as well prove to be pretty simple to answer. Whereas a 2-page question might as well be filled up more than half by descriptive questions. State and explain, describe and explain, why, suggest and comment, blah, blah, blah. Writing those answers is actually time consuming. বুঝতে পারতেছি কি বলতেছি?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any question, anyone?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So this is what I personally recommend. And so far, kids who have followed this, who do care to tell me about their exam experience, they have told me that this worked really well. And I asked the kids to practice this entire procedure in the entire mock session that we do before the exam, 4 months of mock that we take. And so you can essentially practice this. You can practice this practice over the time, which is not going to be a big deal. So that's how it works. So why did I come from section B? That in your section B, you have to answer 2 questions out of 3. So you have to choose and you have the option. So you can have a backward testing. So if you are asked the question for plotting question, in a plotting question, a graph will be given to you. This would mean that you are expected to do multiple things. In that graph, you should do axis labeling. So what are the stuff that you are expected to do? You should do axis labeling, axis label. You should do the axis scale. You should plot
And the points.
You should plot the points. Yes. And then draw the best fit
Diagram.
line or curve as per the question asked you. This entire thing would mean by the word plotting. That's the inherent information. This single word mean all of these stuffs. And then there comes the third word, which is quite rare, draw.
Sir,
Yes.
what's the best fit line slash curve?
A best fit line or slash Asha. Best fit line. What is a best fit line? Okay, best fit line or curve. Best fit line or curve. Asha. What is a best fit line or curve? I'll talk about this in detail after a while.
Is it a tangent?
No, it's not tangent. It's something that is maybe you guys know this thing by some version. I'm gonna come to this question a bit later. So just bear with me. I'll be discussing this a bit later. I mean, এই মুহূর্তে discuss করতে যাচ্ছি না, but it will come in our discussion. Don't worry. Okay. For the timing, আমি questionটা pause রাখতেছি. So if I go for the third word, which is draw, draw essentially means that you are expected to make a crude diagram of plotting. Crude diagram of plotting means you should make a axis system using a ruler, and using your centimeter mark or millimeter mark of the ruler, you should plot out that thing. So you should only mark the axis with your ruler and give the appropriate scale values. Obviously, you need to do axis labeling. So what are these two things? They should be labeled. Axis labeling always comes with two things. There should be a quantity, and then there will be slash, and there should be unit. There should be a quantity, and there should be a slash, and there should be unit. So I'm writing in this form because this can be a lot of things. For example, if you plot velocity time graph, this should be velocity slash meter per second time slash second. If you're trying to plot, let's say temperature versus time, or temperature versus time, or if you're trying to plot, let's say force versus displacement. So you can, I mean, you can have a lot of different quantities over here.
Sir,
in terms of the question. Yes.
আমাদের কি গ্রাফ পেপার দেওয়া হবে?
If it is a plot question, তাহলে দেওয়া হবে. If it's a draw question, in most cases you might not be. If it's a draw question, in most cases for draw questions, you would have to draw a axis system using a ruler in most scenarios. This is actually quite rare, but sometimes they can show up.
Sir, can you repeat? Will we be given graph papers, or just on blank pages do we have to draw?
The answer to your question is not definite. That's why I have given two different answers to your question. If the question asks you plot, if that's the word, then you'll always be given, you'll always have a graph paper. If the question is draw or sketch, you would not be given a graph paper.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So that's for the draw part. So you should apparently draw a crude scaling by on your own, and do the necessary labeling of this also. So you have to put the numbers over here. What are the numbers that you are trying to plot? And then you have to draw some point plotting over here. Let's say 1 point over 1 point over here. And then essentially you draw the necessary curve or straight line, whatever that you are supposed to draw. That's what the draw part means. So basically draw part means that you are basically doing all the stuff that you are supposed to do in the plotting part. The only difficult part is a graph paper is missing. So why did I cover this up? Because in this question that we are covering right over here, it says that analytic chain does a lot of stuffs, and then it says by showing necessary calculations, draw a speed time graph for the journey. So let's try to understand the journey of this electric train. What is happening? It is starting from rest, which means what is the initial velocity?
0, right?
0.
It's 0.
Initial velocity is 0.
0.
And then it starts with an uniform acceleration of 1.5 meter per second square, good for the first 10 seconds. And then it continues accelerating at 0.5 meter per second square for a further 20 seconds. So there are two segments of acceleration. This one is a bit steep. This one is a bit less steep, because this is 1.5, this is 0.5, okay? And for a further 20 seconds, it continues at a constant speed for 90 seconds, and finally it takes 30 seconds to decelerate uniformly to rest. Okay, I'm not essentially sure how should I mean, I'm not yet sure how to draw this speed time graph. So other than directly jumping to the speed time graph, let's just first draw uniform visual linear scenario, or the displacement scenario of this train, so that you can mark up the individual segments, and then we can slowly start doing calculations from there. So let me show you what I mean by this. Just let me show you what I mean by this. As per the question, Wow. Wow. Do you guys have any idea what I'm doing?
No, sir.
No, sir. Not at all.
I'm pressing the hotkeys of my right pad, which I have never done. This is the desktop. This is the switch between the windows. We have multimedia buttons, and then we have a zoom bar. I cannot, you see, I can zoom in and zoom out. So there is a zoom bar over here. And then there are some other 10 buttons which I don't know how to use. Cool, pretty cool. All right. So let's try to draw the scenario of this thing. So let's say I'm gonna draw the rail line track. Let's say this is a rail line track. This is a rough figure, just to make sense. So it starts from rest. This is where the train starts. So let's say I'm representing the train as a particle or as a round object. I could have drawn a bogie, but that would require me to draw all the bogie all the way. So I'm choosing this to be drawn as a lump. So at the beginning, initial velocity was what? 0. When the time was
0.
yes, it started from rest. Take a look. And unit 10 moves from rest. So initial velocity was 0. And then it moves for an acceleration of 1.5 meter per second square for a duration of how much? For the first 10 seconds. So let's say it reaches up to here, where this time is how much?
10 seconds.
10 seconds. Then it moves another segment with 0.5 meter per second square. So let's say acceleration equals to 0.5 meter per second square. And here, this time should be how much?
20 seconds.
No.
20 seconds, sir.
No.
30.
Yes. It shouldn't be 20, it should be 30. Try to think about why.
Oh, হ্যাঁ, sir, বুঝছি.
Can
And continuously accelerate at 0.5 meter per second square for a further 20 seconds.
Yeah, what is the keyword?
And further.
Further is the keyword here. Everyone have a look. It continues its different acceleration for a further 20 seconds. Now, which means যে এইখান থেকে এইটুক টাইম হচ্ছে 20 seconds, right? কিন্তু
Yeah.
আমি টি এর ভ্যালুগুলো লিখছি সেই টি এর ভ্যালুগুলো হচ্ছে কি অ্যাবসলিউট ভ্যালু, মানে হচ্ছে starting from the beginning, which means if this is t equals to 0, this is t equals to 10, then this should be what? T equals to 30. You have to understand this figure is not drawn to scale. Don't even assume that these two times are equal. You have to see the values. The figure is not drawn to scale. I'm just trying to show a rough sketching of the information so that we can essentially visualize the question better. What happens from this point further? Beyond this point, it says that it continues at a constant speed for 90 seconds and finally takes 30 seconds to decelerate uniformly to rest, which means from this point, we're going to have a uniform velocity. So that would mean acceleration goes to what? 0.
0.0.
That should contain up to for a time frame of how much?
90.
120.
120.
120.
Should be 120 seconds. Beautiful. So this duration is 90 seconds, and then it decelerates. We don't know how much is the deceleration. So just because I want to understand this as a deceleration, let's say I'm going to label this as acceleration down. I'm just going to represent a deceleration. This is not a universal.
Negative?
Yeah, it's a negative acceleration or deceleration or slowing down, to be honest.
Sir, minus লিখবো নাকি downward arrow?
Well, we do not know the value. That's the problem. It finally takes 30 seconds to unit to use deceleration. যদি আমি ভ্যালু জানতাম তাহলে সরাসরি আমি এখানে মাইনাস অত দিয়ে লিখে ফেলতে পারতাম. I do not know the value, but just to show it to me as an information that here the object was decelerating, that's why I'm showing it like this. বুঝতে পারছি? Or if you are not comfortable with the arrow, I could have also write this a equals to negative. এটুকু লিখলে তুমি বুঝতে পারবা, because I cannot essentially know the value from the question. I might have to find this out, but what I do know that it's going to decelerate, and eventually it's going to decelerate to rest after how much time? What should be the t value over here?
150.
that should be 30 seconds. Yeah, that should be 150 seconds. So let's say this is 150 seconds, and at this point our final velocity is 0, right? Because the question says that it decelerates
sir.
to decelerates uniformly to rest. So এই হচ্ছে মোশনের টোটাল ইনফরমেশন যেটা আমাদের দেওয়া আছে। এইটুকু বুঝা গেছে কিনা, মানে কোশ্চেনটাকে যে আমরা ভিজুয়ালাইজ করার জন্য এরকম একটা রাফ একটা ফিগার রাখলাম, এই ফিগারের কনস্ট্রাকশনটা বুঝা গেছে কিনা?
Yes, sir.
Everyone, please
Yes,
respond.
sir.
Yeah, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. আজকে আমাদের নতুন একজন স্টুডেন্ট জয়েন করার কথা, আমি যে নামটা ভুলে যাচ্ছি, I think Aris.
Yes, I'm here.
Where you are? Where are you?
Here,
I mean,
somewhere.
I cannot see your microphone icon popping when you're talking. Did you join the class?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So getting back. So this is how the train is making its movement and so on and so forth. And now we are asked to draw the speed time graph. So to be able to draw the speed time graph, we would have to know the individual exclusive value of the speed right at this point. We have to know the speed at this point. We also have to know the speed at this point. That these two endpoints, starting point and end point, speeds are already known. Initial velocity is 0, and at the end of the entire journey, the velocity was also 0. So we don't have to find these out; they're already given. So we have to somehow calculate these two values. Now you can tell me what will be the value of these velocities for these points. Let's try and calculate them. One thing is very important, like I've been always telling you, is that you can only use those equations of motion. V equals to u plus at, s equals to u plus v divided by 2 into t. Third equation, s equals to ut plus half at square. Fourth equation, v square equals to u square plus twice s. Those 4 equations can be applied for one segment of uniform acceleration, which means you can apply this equation for this segment. এই সেগমেন্টে যদি ইউজ করি তাহলে এই পয়েন্টের ফাইনাল ভেলোসিটি কত হবে? আমি এটার জন্য হিসাব করতেছি এখন. Let's have a look. So let's say v equals to u plus at. So let's say this is the view. So আমাদের ইনিশিয়াল ভেলোসিটি ছিল 0, অ্যাক্সেলারেশন কত? 1.5.
1.5.
10 seconds, which gives us how long? Which gives us 15 meter per second.
15.
এই সেগমেন্টের মানে এইটুকুর ফাইনাল ভেলোসিটি হচ্ছে 15 meter per second. Now comes the interesting part. Now we have to apply the equation one more time differently. I mean, we cannot do it differently because we cannot apply the equation altogether for these two segments together. We have to calculate this at one attempt, this at a different attempt, because they have different accelerations. So if I try to find out the final velocity over here, let's say this would be can be also calculated as a v equals to u plus at. Now the question comes, what should this u be? What should be the
15.
should it be 0 or should it be 15?
15.
This is for
V
this
should be 15.
u should be 15. We are trying to calculate the v. এই সেগমেন্টের যেটা ফাইনাল ভেলোসিটি সেটা এই সেগমেন্টের ইনিশিয়াল ভেলোসিটি। এটা কি বুঝতেছো? অবজেক্টটা তো
Yes, sir.
ক্লিয়ার করতেছে।
Yes, sir.
10 সেকেন্ড পরে তার যে ভেলোসিটি হবে, that velocity
আবার একটু
is the-
বলবেন।
বলতেছি। The velocity that the train is going to achieve after 10 seconds, that velocity is going to be the final velocity after the first 10 seconds, which was achieved using an acceleration of 1.5 meter per second squared. Beyond this point, the train starts to accelerate at a lower value. So for this segment of the motion, the initial velocity is the velocity at this time frame, and the final velocity is the velocity at this time frame. So you have to consider these two segments one at a time. Or in other words, in a simple sentence, if I say the final velocity of the first segment is essentially the initial velocity of the second segment, and it can go further. বুঝতে পারছি?
জি স্যার।
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Answer হবে 30.
এটা হবে হচ্ছে
25.
0.5
It's
into
25.
0.5 into 20.
25.
It's 25.
25.
এটা 20 কেন হয়েছে বলো তো?
স্যার 30 হবে না এটা?
The time difference.
না কারণ like
30 minus 10.
এই অ্যাক্সিলারেশনটা কতটুকু সময়ের জন্য अवेलेबल ছিল? Was it available for the 30 seconds or was it available for the 20 seconds?
20 seconds.
20 seconds.
The second segment.
এইটা তো হচ্ছে টাইমের ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল ভ্যালুস, বাট ফর হাউ লং ডিড দিস অ্যাক্সিলারেশন লাস্ট? Think.
20
This is just for
seconds.
20 seconds. That's why this is 20 coming up over here. I mean, I have a reason to give you this much confusion that ফিগারে একটা জিনিস লিখতেছি আবার ক্যালকুলেশন করার সময় একটা জিনিস করতেছি। এটা কারণ হচ্ছে তোমাদের কিছু কিছু কোশ্চেন এরকম হবে যেগুলো তোমার কোশ্চেন থেকে বুঝতে হবে। Try to understand, this acceleration of 0.5 meter per second square lasted for how long? Did it last for all the 30 seconds or did it last for this much 20 seconds? Try to answer that question.
20 seconds.
30,
Yes,
30.
20.
20
This
seconds.
half meter per second square existed for the entire 30 seconds?
Nah,
Oh.
Nah,
Nuhan? So
nah.
how long did it last?
only 20 seconds.
20 seconds.
That's where this 20 coming from.
Oh,
So এটা হবে হচ্ছে 25 meter per second. And since this part is actually uniform zero acceleration, so এখানে যদি 25 meter per second হয়, logic tells us এখানকার স্পিডও কত হবে? 25 meter
25
per second
seconds.
হবে, এটা জিরো অলরেডি জিরো আছে। তার মানে বেসিক্যালি আমরা এখন আমাদের
10 meter per second.
সব পাই গেছি। আমাদের ম্যাক্সিমাম ভেলোসিটি ভ্যালু হচ্ছে 25 এবং টাইমের টোটাল ম্যাক্সিমাম ভ্যালুটা হচ্ছে 150। সো এখন আমাদের স্পিড টাইম গ্রাফটা আস্তে আস্তে আঁকার জন্য আমরা অ্যাটেম্প করা শুরু করব। সো লেট মি ট্রাই এন্ড ড্র দ্য স্পিড টাইম গ্রাফ। What is important that on the y-axis you should label the speed, on the x-axis you should label the time. And we have a certain width of the page. The horizontal axis should be time. So what is the convenient length of line that you should draw using a ruler so that you can conveniently represent 150 seconds within that line? What should be the length of your x-axis so that 150 seconds can be conveniently represented? Let me give you some hints, or let me elaborate this question.
15 centimeter?
15 centimeters.
Well, can you plot 15 centimeter on your paper? I mean, is 15 centimeter accommodable within the width of your typical question paper? Have a look. Take your copy and take a ruler. 15 centimeter is basically the small ruler. Can you draw that entire length within the width of your page?
It's too
Convenient.
long.
No, sir.
It's too big.
No, you should be able to. What? I mean, what I mean is this. Let's say this is your page there where you are doing your math. This is your 6-inch ruler, which is 15 centimeter. Can you draw a 15 centimeter line on your paper? Can you or can you not?
Nah.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes.
If you say, if it's not an A4 paper, if it's some other notebook, if it's some other write pad or some other pharmaceutical pad that you're using, you might not be able to. But for a typical A4 size paper, you should be able to conveniently draw a 50 centimeter line. That I know for a fact. So going for a 50 centimeter line is actually pretty good because that makes our entire scale much too simpler, because we can very easily convert 150 second into 15 centimeter. So the scale actually becomes really comprehensible. If that's a word, I'm not sure. Do I make sense?
Yes, sir.
Can I 15 centimeter because I have to draw my own drawn scale where I should be able to label this entire 150 second. So you should draw your line to be slightly bigger than 150 second, and so that let's say you're gonna start 0 over here. Let's say you can write a 0 over here. If you have on a graph system, if you see the 0 over here, this means both the axes have the starting value to be 0. Some graphs can look like this, not for this one, but say in some other cases. It just popped in my head, so I'm sharing this information. Some graphs can look like this. Let's say this graph starts from 0 and these values are written over here piece by piece. And then let's say over here, on the y-axis, this line is starting from, let's say, 5, and then it goes further up. It is possible. A graph doesn't essentially have to start from origin. In some cases, we can start a graph from different values compared to origin if we want to have a much better representation of data. One of the did you get my point? The graph doesn't essentially have to start from 0, 0.
I didn't understand.
Yeah, I can give you an example. Let me give you an example. It might make sense to you. Let's say you are going to heat up some water from room temperature, which is 25 degrees Celsius, up to temperature of 35 degrees Celsius. And you want to find out that how fast does this happen for a given heater mechanism. Let's say you have a heater of 100 watt. You're trying to heat up 1 kg of water. So exactly how long does it take, or how does the temperature rise over the duration? Now, one of the interesting factors that I really want you to appreciate, that the way thermal dissipation works, which is a bit far-fetched chapter, but I want to give this example because it really works for this scenario. the way thermal dissipation works is that the higher the temperature difference from an object's body with its ambient, which means surrounding, the faster it's going to lose heat. The higher the temperature difference, the faster it's going to lose heat. So which means that if your atmosphere is at 25 degrees Celsius, which by default will always be at 25 degrees Celsius, and your water body is at 25 degrees Celsius as well, there would not be any heat loss because they're both at thermal equilibrium. The temperature being equal is what we call thermal equilibrium. If you have a temperature difference of, let's say, 5 degrees, let's say your hot object's temperature is 30 degrees Celsius, and the atmosphere is still at 25 degrees Celsius, it's gonna lose heat at a certain rate. If the temperature difference is more than 5 degrees, let's say the temperature difference is, this is now 7 degrees. Temperature difference 7 degrees means, let's say the ambient is 25 degrees and the hot water pot is now currently at 32 degrees Celsius. So that the difference between the atmosphere and the hot water is 7 degrees. Let's say if that's the case, in that scenario, the rate of heat loss would be more. Because the warmer an object is gonna dissipate heat faster. The cooler it becomes is gonna dissipate heat slowly. That's how thermal dissipation works. There are physics reasons that why does it happen like that, but I'm not entertaining going into that explanation that what is the physics reason behind why this should happen. I'm just telling you how it happens because that's what you should know for your syllabus volume. The why part is actually quite complicated. It requires a whole lot of discussion about thermodynamics and atomic level construction, which is not relevant for your level. So I'm not getting there. So if you try to plot that information of the temperature increase, let's say from 25 degrees Celsius through 35 degrees Celsius over a duration of, let's say, 10 minutes. Okay. Would it be wise to show your graph from 0 to 35? Or would it be wise to show your graph, this is the temperature scale, this is the theta slash degree Celsius. Or would it be wise to show your graph from 25 to 35? Which one would give you a much clearer picture of what is happening?
25 to 35.
25 to 35.
This one should give you a much clearer picture because if you draw this, all of your value variations would be only accounted for about 1/3 of this space. কারণ 25 থাকবে হচ্ছে about এখানে, তুমি 10 ডিগ্রির মধ্যে তোমার কিছু ভ্যালু প্লট হবে. Whereas in this case, the entire vertical space can be used for the variation of the data. So this should give you a much better visualization. This is one of the examples that why sometimes we can prefer to start graph axis not from 0 point. বুঝতে পারলাম?
Yes, sir.
আবার একটু বলবেন?
To represent the value variation of a certain set of data more conveniently or more expressively, or to make the change value variation more vivid, we can spread out those data more by choosing the scale not to be starting from 0.
বুঝছি স্যার।
Beautiful. So এটা হওয়া possible. আচ্ছা এটা আমাদের এই কোশ্চেনের জন্য essentially লাগবে না. This was a additional discussion which I'm doing. So it's gonna be cut off. বলুন তোমরা কি একটা জিনিস বুঝতেছো যে তোমাদেরকে এই যে শুরুর দিকে যে চ্যাপ্টারগুলো বলতেছি এখানে আমি অনেক প্রাইমারি আইডিয়া বলে দিতেছি. This is exactly why our lessons are being so slow. Do you guys understand that? Like once you know these basics, the further down the chapters, I'm not going to be babbling over these basics every once in a while, but at least for once I should be telling you this. I mean, the reason I'm bringing this up because one of the students from your batch actually left your batch, stating the reason that he or she has finished all the topics that I'm covering right now, so they are not interested doing this right now. I was like, okay, no big deal. I wish them all the best by all means. So yeah. This is equally applicable for all of you as well. If you feel like that you are wasting your time here with us, you are welcome to leave. All right. I should not show this over here. We don't need this. So for this scenario, I should not require this part as well. So might as well get rid of these parts. Yep. So to draw the speed time graph, so I'm going to label this axis as t/second here this should be labeled as speed slash meter per second. So this will start from 0 because I'm going to show both the values starting from 0. Object starts from rest, time starts from 0. Here I should give 15 vertical marks. Let's say over here 10, 20, 30, 40. এই রেটে তো আমি 150 আটা দিতে পারবো না। আচ্ছা আমি তাহলে একটু বুদ্ধিমানের মতো একটু কাজ করার চেষ্টা করি। সেটা হচ্ছে let me conveniently space it up in 3 equal parts, approximately about 3 equal parts, and so that this would be my 50. So this should be divided into 5 equal parts, about here, 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 then বলুন তোমাকে বুঝতেছ আমি কি করতেছি?
জি স্যার।
Yes, sir.
তোমাদের কিন্তু এত কষ্ট করা লাগবে না, তোমরা জাস্ট রুলার ধরে ডাইরেক্টলি ডট বসাই দিবা। সো এখন আমি ইজিলি করতে পারবো 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 150, 200. Oops. কি বললাম? 110, 20, 130, 140, 150. এদিকে আমাদের ভেলোসিটি ম্যাক্সিমাম প্লট করতে হবে কত পর্যন্ত? What is the maximum velocity of the 25. So let's say তুমি 25 তুমি 5 cm প্লট করতে পারো, তুমি যেটা 10 cm প্লট করতে পারো, it's up to you because vertical space তো অভাব নাই, but just don't make it too big. So let's say we're going to go for a 10 cm line. So let's say I'm going to label 25 না ভুল বললাম, 10 না 25 এর জন্য convenient centimeter 5 cm হয়, তো 5 cm প্লট করো, সমস্যা নেই, 5 cm প্লট করো। So let's say 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Polvan, before I move on further, I want everyone to have a very good look for how the axis leveling is done. Have a look. On the line of the axis, we have only written numbers. এখানে কিন্তু আমরা unit লিখি নাই. Did you write units over here? No. Did you write units over here? No. Where did you write the unit? Here. The unit and the quantity should be matched up simultaneously, and that unit should be same for everyone. ঠিক আছে? On the scale, we should only have numbers, only numbers. আচ্ছা, এখন আমরা প্লট করা শুরু করি। So after আমি এইটুক স্পেস আমার লাগবে। আমার এই টাইমিংটা ছিল কত জানো? এটা ছিল হচ্ছে, বলো কেউ জন। I don't want to zoom out. 10 সেকেন্ড পরে velocity was 15. So after 10 seconds, the velocity was 15. So this would be one of the point right over here. Let me use red. And then 30 second গিয়ে velocity হয়েছে 25. So at the 30-second mark, the velocity should be 25. So vertically going up about here, right about here. So this should be another point. I prefer to give dot circles. Dot circles are my preferred version. Then from 30, it should go all the way up to 120. 120 to 25 থাকবে. So let's say 120 about 25. Then within the next 30 seconds, it's going to return to 0. So this is going to be an hour of our point, which is 0. And of course, the 0 point is essentially one of our points. So this is basically the 5 different points that we can locate. Once we do locate them, then we can start joining them by straight lines. Why straight lines? Because we are working with uniform acceleration segments. Zero acceleration is also uniform acceleration. এটা কি বুঝো?
Yes, sir.
Zero acceleration is also uniform acceleration.
How?
Zero is a number. If an object is moving at constant speed, is its acceleration changing?
No.
What is the value of that acceleration?
0.
So is it uniform acceleration?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
So this is how my graph should look like. Any questions so far?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
ঠিক আছে। সো এরপরে আমরা একটু দেখি যে এরপর আমাদের কি করতে বলছে। সো এখানে যে একটা জিনিস বললাম যে বাই শোয়িং নেসেসারি ক্যালকুলেশন, এই শোয়িং নেসেসারি ক্যালকুলেশন মানে হচ্ছে যে এই ক্যালকুলেশনগুলো তোমার শো করতে হবে। তুমি যদি এরকম একটা ফিগার এঁকে করো ওয়েল এন্ড গুড, তুমি যদি এরকম ফিগার না এঁকে পুরোটা কথা লিখে করতে চাও তাও ওয়েল এন্ড গুড, কোনো সমস্যা নাই। তুমি এটা লিখবা যে after the at the end of the at the end of a equals to 1.5 meter per second square, the final velocity is this much. Then you can write at the end of the 0.5 meter per second square acceleration segment, the velocity is this much. This velocity is maintained for the further 90 seconds, which means then at that point t equals to 120 seconds, and then from that point after at t equals to 150 seconds, the object decelerates uniformly to 0. So you can write them in words as well if you want to, but you have to show this calculation. This calculation will
স্যার
have,
ওয়ার্ড ছাড়া নাম্বারে লিখলে হয় না?
if you don't write words, how do you specify that which velocity are you calculating by this equation, which velocity you are calculating by this equation? I mean, you can write this calculation, but what this velocity mean? I mean, what are you trying to calculate?
স্যার
Yes.
এইভাবে লেখা যায় না যে velocity for the first 10 seconds তারপর ইকুয়াল দিয়ে তারপর ম্যাথসটা দেখাই দিলে?
সেটা করতে পারবা। velocity after the first 10 seconds, then you can write velocity after the first 30 seconds, then you can write velocity after the first 120 seconds, then you can write velocity after the 150 seconds. হ্যাঁ, ওইভাবে করতে পারবা, সমস্যা নাই। তোমার দুইটা জায়গাতে ক্যালকুলেশন দেখাইতে হবে, আফটার 10 সেকেন্ড এবং আফটার 30 সেকেন্ড দিকে তোমাকে দুইটা ক্যালকুলেশন দেখাইতে হবে। বাকিগুলোতে তুমি জাস্ট ভ্যালুগুলো লিখে দিলে হবে, ক্যালকুলেশন দেখানো লাগবে না, কারণ ক্যালকুলেশন এই দুটো পয়েন্টে রিলেভেন্ট, এই পয়েন্টগুলোতে রিলেভেন্ট না। বুঝা গেছে?
Yes sir.
সো এটা হইলো। এখন আমরা এখান থেকে ফার্দার কি কি করতে বলছি সেগুলো আমরা বলি। এই গ্রাফ থেকে আমাদের আরো কাজ করতে হবে। এখানে বলছে from your graph or otherwise calculate the total distance traveled, and total distance travel করার যেহেতু আমরা গ্রাফ অলরেডি এঁকে ফেলছি, সো টোটাল ডিসটেন্স ক্যালকুলেট করার ইজিয়েস্ট বুদ্ধি হচ্ছে we should go for what we should go for area calculation. So I'm going to do that, and then just because for the sake of total understanding this, I'm going to also address the otherwise part, that if we did not draw the graph, I mean, if A was not our portion given in the paper, only this much was given, how should we calculate the total distance covered from only by direct mathematics? So I'm going to show you that as well. So from the graph, if we go for the area calculation, how would you do the area calculation? How do you prefer to do the area calculation? You can say divide this up into convenient segments of rectangles and triangles, or you can go for trapeziums. I'm drawing some trapeziums over here. So the first thing would be a triangle. The second thing is drawn as a trapezium, and then we have a third trapezium. So I can use these three segments. But if you're not comfortable with these three segments, you can draw another triangle over here, and then you can divide this into one triangle and one parallelogram. Rectangle. Then you can draw another line over here, another rectangle, another triangle. So you can, I mean, whatever works for your head, is your choice. This would not give you difference in number as long as you do not mess up the calculation. আমার এই সেগমেন্টেশনটা বুঝা গেছে? Everyone?
Yes, sir.
One triangle, one trapezium, another trapezium. So try to calculate this segment. So I'm going to give them numbers over here, 1, 2, and 3. Just to make sense with you, you don't have to give numbers. Actually, number না দিলেও হতো। For example, তুমি পরীক্ষায় যদি এটা করো, তুমি তো নাম্বার দিবা না, তুমি কি লিখবা এরকম দেখাচ্ছি। Let's say S 0-10, এটা হবে হচ্ছে half into 10 into 15, এটা কত হয়? 75, ঠিক আছে? এই সাবস্ক্রিপ্টর মানে বুঝছো? S 0-10 এর মানে বুঝছো?
না স্যার।
এই যে 0 থেকে 10 সেকেন্ডে কতটুকু যাচ্ছে, মানে এইটুক। তারপর আবার 10 থেকে 30 সেকেন্ডে কতটুকু যাচ্ছে।
এটা কি দেওয়া লাগবে?
যদি এখানে না দাও তাহলে তুমি S1 S2 S3 দিতে পারো, সেক্ষেত্রে তুমি এটাকে সেগমেন্ট 1 সেগমেন্ট 2 সেগমেন্ট 3 লেভেল করতে পারো, তাও হয়।
আচ্ছা স্যার।
বুঝা গেছে?
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
আচ্ছা, সো এটা কত আসবে? এটা ট্রাপিজিয়াম ফর্মুলা দিলে কত আসবে? হাফ ইনটু সাম অফ প্যারালাল সাইড। প্যারালাল সাইড হচ্ছে এই দুইটা, এটা হচ্ছে 15, এটা হচ্ছে 25। সো 15 plus 25 multiplied by perpendicular distance between them, which is, এটা কত হবে? 20। এটা কত আসে দেখো তো?
So 400.
400, হ্যাঁ। and then S 30 to 150 all the way. এটার প্যারালাল সাইড হচ্ছে এই দুইটা। সো এটা হচ্ছে টোটাল কতটুকু বড়, এই লাইনটা কতটুকু বড়?
120.
120, বিউটিফুল। আর উপরেরটা
90.
90.
90, মাঝখানে স্পেসটা হচ্ছে 25। করে দেখো এটা ক্যালকুলেটর কত আসে, হেল্প ইয়োরসেলফ।
Two 625.
So এখানে এই তিনটাকে অ্যাড করে দিচ্ছি, therefore total distance, so s equals to, or you can write a sum symbol over here to represent total, or if you don't want to give the sum symbol, you can write therefore
So total 3,100 আসে.
total distance $3,100
meters.
আচ্ছা, সো এটা আমাদের ডিরেক্টলি গ্রাফ থেকে আমাদের আনসার হয়ে গেল। আর আরেকটা জিনিস আমি দেখা যাচ্ছিলাম যে যদি আমরা এই গ্রাফ থেকে ক্যালকুলেশন না করে সরাসরি শুধু কোশ্চেনের অ্যাভেলেবল ইনফরমেশন থেকে, মানে কোশ্চেনে যে অ্যাভেলেবল ইনফরমেশন ছিল, লেটস সে আমি এগুলো ক্যালকুলেট করিই নাই, মনে করো এই ভ্যালুগুলো আমার কাছে নাই, জাস্ট এই ড্রয়িং টুকু আছে, আমি যদি এখান থেকে যদি আমি টোটাল ডিসটেন্স ক্যালকুলেট করতে চাইতাম বা টোটাল ডিসটেন্স কভার বের করতে পারতাম কিনা? না, পারতাম না, আমাকে এই ক্যালকুলেশনগুলো করতেই হতো। বলো তো কেন এই ক্যালকুলেশনগুলো করতে হতো? Someone tell me. হ্যালো,
জি স্যার।
জানি না।
বলতেছি
ইকুয়েশনের জন্য এই ভ্যালুগুলো লাগবে।
ইকুয়েশনের ভ্যালু রাখবে।
ইনিশিয়াল
আমাদের ডিসটেন্স বের করার ফর্মুলা আছে তিনটা। ইকুয়েশন নাম্বার 2টা হচ্ছে এরকম, x = u + v / 2 * t। এখানে দেখো তোমার এই দুইটা ভেলোসিটি লাগতেছে। ইকুয়েশন 3টা হচ্ছে s = ut + half at square। দিস ইজ এ বিউটিফুল ইকুয়েশন, বাট এটার জন্য তোমার ইনিশিয়াল ভেলোসিটি লাগতেছে। ফোর্থ ইকুয়েশন হচ্ছে v² = u² + twice s। এটা দিয়ে আমরা চাইলে s ক্যালকুলেট করতে পারবো, একটু ম্যাথমেটিক্যাল রিফর্ম করা লাগবে, বাট এখানে তোমার ভেলোসিটি লাগছে। সো উইদাউট নোইং দ্য ভেলোসিটি you cannot calculate the displacement. That's not going to work out, which means তোমার by default এই ক্যালকুলেশনগুলো করাই লাগবে, you have no way out. So let's say you have to do this calculation. Now if I want to calculate all of the individual segments distance covered, মনে করো এটা একটা সেগমেন্ট, এটা একটা সেগমেন্ট, এটা একটা সেগমেন্ট, এটা একটা সেগমেন্ট, চারটা সেগমেন্টের ডিসটেন্স যদি আলাদা আলাদা করে বের করি, তাহলে সেই ভ্যালুগুলি কত হয় সেটা একটু আমরা বের করার চেষ্টা করি। বুঝতেছো কি বলতেছি?
Yes sir.
Without doing the graph,
Yes, sir.
if we want to calculate the total distance covered exclusively from the mathematical information, then how can we approach that? To be able to do that, I'm going to do one thing. সেটা হচ্ছে I'm going to take all of it and drag them down so that I can have a bit of space on the top so that I can write the calculation over there. I hope this will help. Yes. So let's try and write in this location. আচ্ছা, সো এখানে আমাদের কভার ডিসটেন্স হবে কত? বলো কি ফর্মুলা ইউজ করা যায় এখানে কভার ডিসটেন্স বের করার জন্য? কোনটা ইউজ করাটা ইজিয়ার হয়? একটা ইউজ করলেই হয়। আচ্ছা, আমি সেকেন্ডটা ইউজ করতেছি। s = হচ্ছে 0 + 15 / 2 * 10। এখান থেকে একটা ভ্যালু আসবে, এটা হবে হচ্ছে s = 15 + 25 / 2 * 20। এখান থেকে একটা ভ্যালু আসবে, এটা হচ্ছে s = 25 * 90। এখান থেকে একটা ভ্যালু আসবে, এটা হচ্ছে s = 25 + 0 / 2।
Sir divided by 2 দেওয়া হচ্ছে কেন?
এই যে এখানে একটা 2 আছে ওই জন্য।
ও বুঝছি।
Sure. * 30। সেগুলো সব ক্যালকুলেট করে দেখো কত আসে। এটা আসবে হচ্ছে 75, এটা আসবে হচ্ছে 10 400, এটা আসবে কত, I should give unit, এটা আসবে হচ্ছে
2250.
থ্যাংক ইউ, আর এটা 15 ইন্টু 25 করলে কত হয়,
375.
375, and এই চারটা নাম্বারকে অ্যাড করলে ultimately you should get the same number. Add these up and see if you get 100. ঠিক আছে? So this second set of calculation that I showed you is the otherwise method, that if they did not ask us to draw the graph, I mean, if the question doesn't ask us to draw the graph, we might as well prefer not to draw the graph. But you can, if you want, if you really feel compelled, you can go ahead and draw the graph and do your distance calculation from the graph as well. It's not prohibited, but it might as well cost you some additional time for which you will not be rewarded any marks. But if you really need that way, or if this method does not pop in your head, or if you find this too difficult to achieve halfway in your path, if you feel like that now doing the draw graph would be much easier, then you can do that as well, no problem. So এই পর্যন্ত বুঝা গেছে সবার ক্যালকুলেশন?
জি স্যার।
Any problem, anyone?
না স্যার।
No problem.
একটু লেখা শেষ করতে হয় না, একটু ওয়েট করুন।
আচ্ছা হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে, শিওর শিওর, হ্যাঁ লিখে নাও।
একটু উপরে স্ক্রল করুন।
এখানে লেখা, এখান থেকে উপরে তো ওই যে জাস্ট নরমাল লাগ, মানে এই চারটা ক্যালকুলেশন লিখছি।
একটু ওয়েট করুন, আর 1 মিনিটে হয়ে যাবে।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ শিওর শিওর শিওর, নো প্রবলেম।
শেষ হয়ে গেছে।
আচ্ছা, থ্যাংক ইউ। So let's go for the next problem. Do you have a next problem? We do have a next problem. এটা পারছো সবাই? A person throws a stone at 30 meters per second vertically upwards from the top of a seaside cliff. The stone hits the sea surface after 10 seconds. Wow. Find the speed at which the stone hits the sea. Okay. By showing necessary calculations, draw a velocity time graph for this stone. From the graph or otherwise, calculate the height of the cliff from the sea surface. Beautiful question, to be honest. Loads of information. So let's go ahead and try to do that. So I'm gonna move to the right side of this page. Start new. কি জন্য লিখতে এলাম? Oh, question number 6. Question number 6 এর information গুলো আমি আগে একটু represent করি so that it's easier for us to understand. It says a person is gonna throw a stone from a seaside cliff. Let's say this is the cliff, this is the hill, which is the cliff, and let's say at the bottom of the cliff there is the sea surface. So this is water, this is sea. So a stone is going to be thrown from this surface. So I'm not showing the person, I'm not showing the stone, I'm only showing the necessary part of the drawing. Let's say the stone was thrown from here, which is going to have an upward velocity of something that is given. As per the question, it's going to rise vertically up and eventually fall onto the sea. Now you might think, well, if it falls vertically up and falls vertically down, shouldn't it hit the cliff once again? Why should it hit the sea? I mean, if it's supposed to hit the sea, then this direction should not be vertical. It should be at some angle so that it can move a direction like that. Well, in that case, you're absolutely correct. For the time being, let's assume that that angle at which we are making it, throwing it vertically upwards, so that it would actually move a little bit to fall into the sea. Let's say that angle is negligible. What I'm trying to mean is that throwing vertically upwards would essentially mean, let's say, exactly 90 degree. Let's say over in this case, the angle was 89.9 degree. So for that 0.1 degree variation, the stone did rise up to some height and eventually moved off from the cliff so that it could move down all the way to the cliff over here. So let's assume that's correct. So what is the throwing velocity as per the question? U equals to কত? Initial velocity of the is 30 meter per second, right? So the question says that this is 30 meter per second. So what is going to happen? This stone is going to rise all the way up, and it's going to slow down and come to stop at certain position. Then it's going to fall all the way down, and eventually it's going to hit the sea surface after some time. So let's say it hits the sea over here. According to the question, the entire journey of this entire duration of this journey, total duration of this journey was how long? 10 seconds. Read the question and try to understand that question information. Have a look. A person throws a stone at 30 meters per second vertically upwards from the top of a seaside cliff. The stone hits the sea surface after 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, from which incident is this after 10 seconds is?
From the throwing of the stone.
From the throwing of the stone, exactly. Which means that the total traveling time of the stone was 10 seconds, which means the stone moved through atmosphere from the person's hand all the way through the atmosphere and immediately hit the sea after 10 seconds. So the total traveling time of the stone is 30 seconds. That's the important information. That's one thing. And then it further says, it doesn't say us anything else, and then that's what the question gets started. One thing we should remember that here the initial velocity I have written as positive as plus positive 30 meters per second, because I'm considering for the vector coordinate upward as positive, which means the acceleration in this case should be minus g, which is minus 10 per meter per second squared, because a is going to work downwards. So what does this mean? Acceleration working downwards means that any object that is thrown is moving upwards is going to slow down, and any object that is moving downwards is going to speed up, which means as the object starts from its original point, goes further up, it slows down, and eventually at the highest point, momentarily it will reach a velocity of 0. That's the point of return, and from this point it's going to start falling downwards once again. So we have done this kind of a discussion in one of our earlier classes in pretty detail, so I'm not getting into the implication for why does our eye apparently assume that the object is actually stays at 0 position for a duration of time. It actually doesn't, but our brain registers it as that because of the limitation of our viewing capability and our brain. Anyway, so this much information that we know, or this much is what is given to us, and this is something that we know from our general background. So the question says find the speed at which the stone hits the sea. So the question is firstly asking us what is the speed, not velocity, what is the speed of the stone as it hits this thing. So what is the v equals to what? Now comes the idea. V equals to, so this is
U plus 80.
equals to u plus 80. So if I go for 30 plus 10 into, sorry, minus 10 into 10. Minus 10 কোথা থেকে আসছে বুঝছো? বলবান?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
এই minus 10টা কি? Acceleration.
Downward acceleration.
Downward acceleration. Beautiful, thank you. So এখান থেকে আমাদের আসবে হচ্ছে minus 70 meter per second. This is supposed to happen, supposed to be minus, because what this essentially means, when the stone will hit the sea, it's going to be moving downwards. But in our answer, we should not give the minus. Why? Because the question asked us to calculate what? Read the question. What does it say? Find the
Speed. Speed is a scalar quantity.
This is a scalar quantity. Beautiful. So the question asked us for a scalar quantity, which means the question only asked for the magnitude. So we're going to only write, therefore, speed equals to 70 meters per second. Speed লিখলে আমরা সাইন দিব না। বুঝে গেছে এটা?
জি স্যার।
আচ্ছা, এরপরে বি নাম্বার কি বলছে দেখি। বি নাম্বার বলছে হচ্ছে,
Sir, I had a question.
ব্রেক দিবেন?
ইয়েস।
এরপর
হ্যাঁ ব্রেক দিব। একটু দাঁড়াও, আমি কোশ্চেনটা নিয়ে তারপর ব্রেক দিচ্ছি। বলো।
ঠিক আছে স্যার।
Sir, I had a question যে যদি কোথাও কখনো acceleration না মেনশন করা থাকে বা কোনো সোর্স না থাকে যেটাতে আমরা acceleration বের করতে পারবো, are we at the liberty to just assume that it's going to be minus 10 meter per second square?
No, not essentially.
Or according to the direction?
No, not essentially. বলতেছি, If the question specifies that if you can understand from the statement of the question that the object is going to move under the effect of gravitational force, only then can you use acceleration equals to 10 meter per second square or downward 10 meter per second square. If nothing else is mentioned, for example, let's say if I tell you that an object is rolled onto a horizontal surface and I give you some math, but I have given you no mention of acceleration, you cannot assume it is moving under gravity. I mean, a lot of things might be involved. I mean, surface friction might be involved. Air resistance might be involved. If there are some dents on the surface of the ball, or if there are some dents on the roughness of the surface, those things might get involved. But essentially, gravitational force would not be the only thing that would be involved. You have to be able to understand it from the context of the question that for a certain given scenario, only the gravity is the driving force. If that is the case, then you can conveniently use the gravitational acceleration minus 10 meter per second square for your calculation.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yes. At this point, we're going to take a 9 minutes break. We're going to resume class at 7.10 for my repair. So we're back and resuming the class. So B number দেখি আমরা B number বলছে হচ্ছে by showing necessary calculation draw a velocity time graph for this stone. So we are being asked for the velocity time graph. This is important for us to understand because we have to understand, we have to consider that for this entire motion of the stone, it was going upwards for certain part of the motion, then it was going downwards as well, which means in the velocity time graph, if I just show you a rough figure, the velocity time graph, let's say this is the velocity time graph. So let's say this is a velocity axis, this is a time axis. The graph should exist on both sides of the horizontal axis. Positive velocity or upward motion should be shown on this part. Negative velocity or downward motion should be shown on this part. And দেখতে কেমন হবে সেটা আমরা পরে বলতেছি, but this graph should exist on both sides of the graph system because we are trying to plot velocity time graph, which means this is a vector quantity, which means it can have and it should have for the given scenario both positive and negative values in its motion. And the velocity should be 0 somewhat after some time where the stone reached its maximum height. So let's try and go ahead to find out. So what are the information that we require? We already know the starting velocity, which is the positive velocity. We already know the downward hitting velocity. Velocity is minus 70. As velocity is minus 70. So all that we are left to find out where should this crossing point be. So where v equals to 0 should be. To be honest, we don't actually need that. Let me show you 2 steps and convince you of this fact. Have a look. If I plot the velocity time graph, now have a look. How much space should you require for your velocity time graph? On the horizontal axis, you need to show a total of 10 seconds. So a 10 centimeter line is good enough. On the vertical axis, how much length do you require? Can somebody guess? How much time should we require on the vertical axis? How many spaces should we require on the vertical axis?
10.
10.
Why 10?
10.
Why 10?
30 and 70. It's 110.
Beautiful. So let's label this thing v equals to v/meter per second, over here t/second. So এখানে তোমরা 10 second label করবা. Let's say 1. আচ্ছা আমি 1 না লিখে আমি একটু কম করে লিখি। well আচ্ছা না বেশি করে লিখি, আবার তোমরা মনে করবা যে এটা স্ট্যান্ডার্ড। 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Okay, 10. So let's say here we have 30. So here we have 10, 20, 30. And on the downside, we have, this is 0 for all of them. This is
minus 10, minus 20, minus 30.
Goes on. You have to write all of these values. I'm skipping them because we are running out of time. Here it should be minus 70. So to be honest, the reason we do not have to find out where it actually comes to stop, because we can very easily plot 2 coordinates on this line. One of the coordinates is going to be this one. We know this for a fact. At t equals to 0, the upward velocity of the stone was 30 meters per second upward. So this should be the starting point of the VT graph, not 0, because the object is not starting from rest. Object is starting from upward velocity of 30 meters per second. This is the initial velocity, upwards, so positive. And the final velocity after 10 seconds was minus 70. So if I just plot it all the way up over here, somewhere over here, downwards from this side. You should use your ruler so that you can get a good point over here. So this should be a point right over here. And we can essentially draw a perfect straight line that should represent the gradient of the gravitational acceleration. Works. So that should about do this. So এখানে দেখো যে somehow calculation করে এটা আমাদের about nearly 3 তে কাট করতেছে। To be honest, এই ভ্যালুটা exactly 3 হওয়ার কথা। Exactly 3 হওয়ার কথা কিভাবে ক্যালকুলেশন করে দেখাতে পারি সেটা হচ্ছে if I just have to calculate how much is this rising time, how much was this time, I can write that here the final velocity of this rising part was 0. So if I go for the calculation that v equals to u plus at, but I'm only trying to calculate for the rising part. So for that segment, v is 0, initial velocity was 30, plus acceleration was minus 10, and t is the unknown. I want to calculate out the t. Change it on the left side, do the division, ultimately you get t equals to what? 3 seconds. Which means it is going to rise up for 3 seconds, and for the remaining 7 seconds, it's going to fall vertically down and eventually hit the sea surface at a final velocity of minus 70 meters per second. So that's basically the calculation. You don't need this calculation to be showed. This is optional because we have these two lines, and because the entire graph is going to represent the gradient of this graph should be how much? Can somebody tell me? What should be the value of gradient of this graph?
10.
10.
I would say minus 10. Someone said minus 10 at a very low voice.
Yes, sir.
The magnitude should be 10, but that value should be minus 10. There should be the gradient value. I can write m equals to minus 10. M is the generic symbol for gradient. So that works. আচ্ছা, তার মানে হচ্ছে আমি এখানে একটু কারেকশন করি। কারেকশনটা করার কারণ হচ্ছে আমাদের এই কারেকশনটা লাগবে। So I'm going to label this 3 exactly at this point. This should be our 3. Okay. আচ্ছা, এরপরে সি নাম্বার কি বলছে দেখি একটু। সি নাম্বারে বলছে হচ্ছে from the graph calculate the height of the cliff from the sea surface. So height of the cliff from the sea surface, which means what are we asked to calculate? We are asked to calculate
height of the cliff.
Height of the cliff. Let's say I'm going to use blue. We're asked to calculate how much is this. এইটুকু কত বাই করতে বলছে in terms of distance. Now have a look. This is the rising height, which should be the area of this part. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
This is the total fallen height, and this should be the area. Let me use green of this part. So we can very easily calculate the individual area of these two triangles. That's pretty simple to calculate from the graph. This is the rising height, this is the falling height. And আমরা যদি total rise height থেকে total fallen height থেকে total rise height থেকে separate করে দেই, তাহলে essentially আমরা এই হাইটটুকু পেয়ে যাব না। Let's say this height, I mean this rising height was, let's say, x, and let's say this entire fallen height was, let's say, y. So shouldn't this remaining height of the cliff, let's say this is h, shouldn't h be available from y minus x?
Yes, sir.
Try to visualize.
Can you repeat?
Let's say the entire rising height or rising distance, for example, the entire rising distance was x. Let's say this was x meter from the throwing point to the maximum height of the stone. And then let's say from this point all the way down to the surface of the sea, let's say this entire falling depth or downward distance covered was, let's say, y meter. So if we do the subtraction of y minus x, shouldn't we get the h? Because you can see it over here, h plus x equals to y, right? If I want to calculate h, can I work with this equation?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's basically what we're going to do over here. Try to calculate out the individual distances of these two triangles and do the subtraction. Go ahead and try this on your own. See how much you get. I'll try alongside. Let's say blue triangle area.
But sir, why do we need to subtract?
Because we are asked to calculate the height of the cliff. Height of the cliff. So height of the cliff essentially means what? From the throwing point all the way to the zero. Have a look at this figure, see if it makes sense. Why the subtraction is irrelevant should be visible in this figure. This much height is being labeled as, I'm trying to give you some idea, I'm labeling this as, let's say, x meter, and the entire fallen height is, let's say, labeled as y meter. So shouldn't h plus x equals to y?
Yes.
So h equals to y minus x. So this area should represent y and this area should represent x. So you can calculate these two areas individually and then do the subtraction. বুঝে গেছে?
জি স্যার
200 নাকি आंसर
কত আসে? হাইটটা বল, আমি ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল এরিয়াগুলো ক্যালকুলেশন, এরিয়া ক্যালকুলেশন খুব সিম্পল, কারণ জাস্ট
200
আছে।
আমার 200 আসে।
200 আসে?
জি স্যার।
আচ্ছা, two of your friends said 200, other people please confirm.
200
correct?
It's 200.
200 ঠিক আছে এটা?
জি স্যার।
Answer.
আচ্ছা,
জি স্যার,
কারো ম্যাচ না করলে রেসপন্ড করো, তাহলে আমি আবার ক্যালকুলেশন আবার করে দেখাবো, বাট এটা কঠিন হওয়ার কথা না। এনিওয়ে, সো দ্যাটস দ্য হাইট অফ দ্য ক্লিফ। আচ্ছা, এটা হচ্ছে একটা ওয়ে। সো what would be the otherwise method, or if we want to calculate that, what is the if we did not have the access to the graph, only the information from the question, how could we possibly calculate this displacement from the given information? We could very well do that. Let me show you how we could do that. Have a look. We do know what s equals to ut plus half it square, right? What was the initial velocity of this stone? 30. What is the total duration of traveling from the throwing point all the way to the bottom of the to the sea surface? That was 10 seconds, right?
10.
So you're basically trying to calculate how far did it move from the starting point after 10 seconds, because after 10 seconds it's going to be at the sea surface. So if you calculate the total displacement, s is the displacement, not distance. If you calculate the total displacement from the starting point to the sea surface, that's basically the how much displacement happens over a duration of 10 seconds. মজার জিনিস হচ্ছে এই 10 সেকেন্ডের মধ্যে অল্প একটু আপওয়ার্ড মোশন আছে, আবার অল্প একটু ডাউনওয়ার্ড মোশনও আছে। But if we apply the math for the entire duration of 10 seconds, we can calculate that number directly. Let me show you, and then I can convince you of this fact. Plus half into minus 10 into 10 square. এটা ক্যালকুলেট করে দেখাও তো কত আসে।
স্যার এটা আসে -200।
-200 আসে না?
-200।
আচ্ছা, -200 কেন হলো?
স্যার কারণ এটা অ্যাক্সেলারেটিং ডাউনওয়ার্ড।
Nope. Because whenever we
নিচে পড়তেছে,
সি লেভেলের নিচে।
সি লেভেলের নিচে না, সি লেভেলে এসে তো পড়তেছে। এটা কারণটা হচ্ছে আমরা যখন এই ইকুয়েশনটা অ্যাপ্লাই করলাম, তখন আমরা এই পয়েন্টটাকে আমরা অরিজিন ধরছি, মানে এটা হচ্ছে আমাদের এক্স অ্যাক্সিস। So any displacement above this point is a positive displacement. Any displacement below this point would be negative displacement. I can prove this to you with some additional calculation. Give me some time. What I mean, যতক্ষণ পর্যন্ত অবজেক্টটা এই লেভেলের উপরে থাকবে for any amount of time, relevant time, this would be a positive displacement. Whenever the object falls below this level, horizontal level, that would be negative displacement because the object has gone below the starting level. So তুমি নরমালি চিন্তা করো ভেক্টরের কনসিডার আইডিয়াটা কি, যে এটা যখন স্টার্টিং পয়েন্ট হয়, the way we have gone for this mechanism, that upward was considered to be positive. So which means any displacement in the upward direction would be a positive displacement. Any displacement in the downward direction should be what? Negative displacement, right?
Yes,
That's
sir.
the idea. That's the idea of vector. So if you wonder that doesn't seem correct, let me show you why this is correct. I'm going to do some additional calculation which is going to make sense to you. এখানে একটা জিনিস খেয়াল করো, আমাদের এখানে টোটাল রাইজিং টাইমটা কত ছিল? 3 সেকেন্ড ছিল না? Total rising time ছিল 3 seconds. So try to think about this. This object, this stone, takes 3 seconds to rise up. Logically, shouldn't it also take 3 seconds to fall down by the same height?
Yeah.
মানে এই রাইজটুকু উঠতে যদি 3 সেকেন্ড লাগে, তাহলে এই ফলটুকু পড়তে কতটুকু সময় লাগবে? 3 সেকেন্ডই লাগার কথা না?
3 seconds.
তার মানে হচ্ছে এই রাইজটুকু হচ্ছে 3 সেকেন্ড, এই ফলটুকু হচ্ছে 3 সেকেন্ড, আর বাকি ফলটুকু হচ্ছে কত সেকেন্ড?
4 seconds.
4 seconds.
This is interesting because if I place the value of t, anything that is smaller than 6 seconds altogether, our distortion will be positive. Let me show you some example. Let's say I'm going to use the same equation, same set of values. Let's say s equals to ut plus half at square. ঠিক আছে? এই সেম ইকুয়েশনে মনে করো u এর ভ্যালু হচ্ছে ফিক্সড 30, এর ভ্যালু হচ্ছে ফিক্সড -10, এই দুটো ভ্যালু সেম থাকবে। t ইকুয়ালস টু যদি আমি এক্স্যাক্টলি 2 বসাই, তাহলে আমাদের s এর ভ্যালু কত আসে আমাকে বলো। এই ভ্যালুটা ক্যালকুলেট করে বলো আমাকে যে t ইকুয়ালস টু 2 সেকেন্ড বসালে কত আসে। হেল্প মি।
20.
প্লাস 20, রাইট?
Yes.
t ইকুয়ালস টু 4 বসালে কত আসে?
Plus 10.
প্লাস 10।
Yes, sir.
That should be plus 20 as well. Careful. 30 plus 30 into 4 plus half into -4 into -10 into 4 square. This should be plus 20 as well. করো এই ক্যালকুলেশনটা কেয়ারফুলি করো। টি কিন্তু দুইখানে চেঞ্জ হবে, খেয়াল করো, এক জায়গাতে না শুধু। টিটা দুই জায়গাতেই আছে। t equals to 4 মানে হচ্ছে 30 into 4 plus half into -10 into 4 square. ওটা কত আসে সেটা বলো আমাকে।
Sir, both of them will be 10. I didn't square t
মানে
first
প্রথম
time.
এটাও 10 হবে?
Yes, sir.
Really?
The first time I forgot to square t.
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, এটা 10 হবে। তাহলে এখন ঠিক আছে?
Yes, sir.
বলবান বাকিরা একটু এগ্রি করো।
Yes, sir.
জি স্যার।
ঠিক আছে?
জি স্যার। জি স্যার।
ধরো আমি যদি এখানে t equals to 4.5 সেকেন্ড দিই তাহলে কত আসবে? তোমরা তো ক্যালকুলেটর ইকুয়েশনে লিখছো না, ওই ইকুয়েশনের ব্র্যাকেটের ভিতরে গিয়ে ভ্যালুগুলো জাস্ট চেঞ্জ করে দাও, তাহলে তোমার ইজিলি হয়ে যাবে। t equals to 4.50 কত আসবে? Anyone?
Sir, 33.75.
33.75.
Did you use a equals to -10?
Yes. Sir, it's 33.75.
So it's minus 71.25.
into 4.5. আচ্ছা আমি ক্যালকুলেটর নিয়ে আসছি। 30 into 4.5 plus 0.5 into -10 into 4.5 square. Syntax error.
Sir, why you are crying?
ক্যালকুলেটর আমাকে সিনট্যাক্স এরর দিয়েছে। 33.75 কেন আসে?
Sir, কি on? হ্যাঁ 33.75.
Sir, 3.75.
3.75 আসে।
স্যার
ভুল
টাইম
করতেছি।
যখন স্যার টাইম যখন 2 সেকেন্ড আর 4 সেকেন্ড থাকে তখন আমার 40 আসে।
স্যার আমারও।
Yes, sir, it's 40.
হ্যাঁ স্যার আমারও আসে।
ওই জন্য আমি বলতেছি আমার তাহলে ক্যালকুলেশন ভুল হচ্ছে। ম্যাক্সিমাম হাইটটা কত আসছে? s equals to 3 এর ভ্যালু কত? আচ্ছা s equals to 3 তে ক্যালকুলেট করে। আচ্ছা s equals to 3 এখানে ক্যালকুলেট করে ফেলি। আচ্ছা এই ভ্যালুগুলো রাখো তোমরা, মুছো না। এই ভ্যালুগুলো আমার লাগবে। আমাকে t equals to 3 বসালে কত আসে সেটা বলো, তাহলে আমরা ম্যাক্সিমাম হাইটটা পাই যাবো, তাহলে আমাদের আর ভেজাল হবে কম। t equals to 3 কত আসে? 3 বসালে আসবে হচ্ছে, আচ্ছা এটা হচ্ছে
45.
এটা 45 is it?
45.
Yes, sir, 45.
আর এগুলো হচ্ছে 40 তাই না?
45.
Many of you might wonder, আপনি এতগুলো প্লাস লিখতেছেন কেন? প্লাস লেখার কারণ কি? প্লাস লেখার কারণ হচ্ছে I'm representing this S as vector quantities, displacement. That's why I'm giving the plus. I have a reason to give the plus. 4.5 এর জন্য আসলে হলো 33.75, which is good. ঠিক আছে? আর আমি যদি t equals to যদি 5.5 দিই তাহলে কত আসবে?
13.75.
13.75.
13.75.
13.75. t equals to 6 বসালে কত হয় দেখো তো?
0.
Exactly. এই জিনিসটা মানে বুঝতেছো আমি এখানে কি দেখাইতেছি তোমাদেরকে?
স্যার আবার একটু বুঝাবেন এই হোলটা।
এই ক্যালকুলেশনগুলোর মানে হচ্ছে যে আমাদের যখন ক্লিফটা তো উপরে চলে গেছে, আমি ক্লিফটা এটাকে একটা ফ্রেমে আনতে পারতেছি না। আচ্ছা আচ্ছা আমি ক্লিপটাকে কপি করে এটার পাশে নিয়ে আসি।
স্যার আপনার ও শেষ
কি টাইম শেষ?
হ্যাঁ
হ্যাঁ, আমি জাস্ট গোনা ফিনিশ দিস ডিসকাশন এন্ড দেন উইল কল ইট এ ডে। একটু ওয়েট করো, ধৈর্য ধরো।
স্যার আপনি বলেছিলেন আপনাকে
Sir, I have another class.
স্যার
ইয়েস
আপনি বলেছিলেন আপনাকে মেকআপ ক্লাসের কথা মনে
স্যার
করাতে
হ্যাঁ
হবে।
মেকআপ ক্লাসের কথা মনে করায় দিতে বলছেন।
ওয়েল ওকে
নাকি শুক্রবারে করবেন?
This is not a good time to discuss a time frame
শুক্রবারে করেন
and settle a time frame with everyone's concept. We don't have that time to go ahead. Anyway, I'm having these numbers. Acha, never mind. I'm gonna save this and we'll start this discussion from this point next class. Tomar bhago, tomar jader class ase, I shouldn't hold you back. Kids, thank you very much for your questions. I'm gonna save this picture for our next class and we're gonna start exactly from this point.
ঠিক আছে স্যার, ঠিক আছে স্যার।
ক্লিপগুলো তোমাদের কাছে রাখো, ক্লিপগুলো দিয়ে কি করতে হবে সেটা আমি নেক্সট ক্লাসে আলাপ করব। আল্লাহ হাফেজ।
Bye, sir.
Bye bye, sir.
Hi, sir.
Allah Hafiz.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম।
আসসালামু আলাইকুম স্যার।